and welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. This week, while looking at the comments for our videos, I noticed a comment from Marsha Wallace. I think that's her name. Let me just quickly double check. Yes, Marsha Wallace. And she was asking about the Irish triple chain that I featured in one of my show and tell videos. And this is a quilt top that I made using machine strip piecing. And I formed strips and then sewed strips into bigger strips and then sewed pieces of those bigger strips into blocks. Now, for an Irish chain of any kind, whether it's a single, double, or triple, you've got one block that is just chock full of colors, and then another block that's in your background fabric. So it's going to be a block that's mostly, let's say for mine, mostly white. Now, I only have these few little scraps left from this project, so I'm really not able to go through how I made that one. But I wanted to talk you through the process a little bit and then also let you know that our next project, and we're going to start it August the 1st, is going to be a machine piece top. And while it's not an Irish chain or something like an around the world, it is a block that we're going to be putting together using the same type of technique. We're going to put together a strip of fabrics that are similar, and then we're going to take those blocks and cut them in strips and sew them together with other strips to make that block. But back to the triple Irish chain. This is what I call the busy block in that. And it is 7 squares by 7 squares. And in this block, there are 4 different types of strips. There are the 2 on the outside, the 2 in the second place spots, the 2 just on each side of the center, and then the center block. So if you're making strips, you make a strip for each of these 4 patterns. And then you take that pattern and you cut these strips into their own strips in a perpendicular manner, and then you assemble them. Now, how you get that Irish chain pattern is by having the alternate block. And in this case, the alternate block for that pattern only involved 3 colored pieces in each corner. And those colored pieces in the corner here allow that design to continue. And how I did this in my thinking process of how I was going to design this, I recall when I did this, I definitely wanted the 3 different greens and then the white as the background fabric to contrast it. So I had to first go out and find the fabrics, and here are my notes and sketches from that. When I finally located the fabrics, I recorded what they were, and I'm pretty sure that all of these came from Joann's, because at the time we were just losing our Hancock store in the city I was living in, so we were down to either Joann's or a quilt store, and the quilt store did not have the variety of greens in the hues that I wanted. So I went to Joann's, I believe, I'm almost certain, and bought these. And so I had notes here about the stock numbers, the description, and also I think that is the actual barcode on the fabric. And then I made a chart of what I wanted the design to look like. And from that drawing, then I was able to separate the pattern into the 2 blocks, and I could see how they repeated. And I'm going to take a picture of this and post it up here so that you can see that while we're talking about this. In fact, I'll move over just a little so we have plenty of room. So once that was done in that plain block, I was able to determine what my strips needed to look like so I could make strips to replicate the pattern I needed. I also determined in my particular pattern or design and size I was using that I had an 8x8 strip in the middle of that plain block that had nothing but white, and I wanted that to be a solid piece of fabric so it would be easier to quilt on that. And I did come up with my own unique design for quilting in that by taking something I saw online and modifying it into a design that I could quilt onto it. Something in that Irish theme, a Celtic theme. So from that I started describing what strips I needed. And I needed an A strip, that's this one, a B strip, a C strip, the D strip that goes in the center, a C, a B, and an A. And of course I needed fewer of the D strips than I did of the others because there's 2 of these, but only 1 of these per block. So then I could begin to calculate how many of the bigger strips, and this isn't full size. This isn't even full size, but you get a better idea of how these go together and how long they can be. Now, the only thing that I'm going to tell you is it's very easy when you're sewing strips together for your sewing line on a machine to get kind of wavy. You want to take care that your seam allowances remain pretty steady at that 1/4 inch or whatever you choose to use. And you want to make sure that the full size of the strip finished is what you're looking for, because when you cut those and you go to put them together, you're going to have to ease them in at every single point they come together. So the closer they are, the more consistent they are, the easier that's going to be. But even if they're a little bit off, you can ease them in by simply stretching or easing in the fabric that's too much, that's too wide. You just want to be careful that you don't ease in too much. If you find a place where you've got, I would say, more than 1/8 of an inch that you need to ease in, you might want to think about either letting out a seam a little bit or making your seam just a little bit wider. Okay, so we've covered that. And you can notice here I've got another drawing where I have the finished desired look, and I've squared out the 2 squares. There's the darker block and then the lighter block here to try to determine what sizes those need to be finished, then add the seam allowances on to get the seams that I need. And for that alternate block, the one that's mostly white, in mine, again, I had 1, 2, 3, 3 different kinds of strips. I had a busy strip that had 3 different fabrics. I had the middle strip that only had 2 fabrics. And then I had 3 strips in the middle that only had 1 fabric. So a little bit less piecing in those. And then depending on your actual pattern itself, whether you're going with the single, the double, or the triple, the sizes of the blocks may be different, and also exactly what's showing up in that alternate block may be different, because this is using a triple Irish chain desired look in the finished product. This one was also a pattern that was very stringent in what colors went where. If you're making a block that's scrappy, then not only do you need to look at the pattern of the pattern versus plain, but you also need to look at the scrappiness of it. So I'm trying to figure out how to explain that to you. In this one, we know that there are set blocks, and the blocks are differentiated by the colors and the white. In a scrappy, you're not going to have the colors because the colors are all going to be different colors. So you're only looking at the colored or the patterned pieces versus the plain pieces. So just don't forget to take that into account. You will need to adjust your thinking just slightly on that. Anyway, that is a quick overview of how I use the Triple Irish Chain pattern to come up with this quilt design. A couple of my drawings that I used, and there's lots of notations on here about how many of these squares I'm going to need and how many of the white squares I'm going to need, and just to double check to see if I think I had enough fabric. Now, if you're interested in something like this and putting your quilt top together by machine piecing, I would welcome you and encourage you to join us in August as we start our new project. It is going to be a Sister's Choice block. We're doing it in a royal dark blue, I'm looking at the fabric over there, and white. So it's going to be a two-color quilt. Similar to this being green and white, it's going to be blue and white, and it is going to have that kind of checkerboard like this of a very densely pieced square versus a lightly pieced square. So you'll begin to see how that technique works. It won't be exactly like this, but it will be close. And like I said, I'm going to publish these little drawings that I had. Try to get a PDF attached in the comments if I can. And I'll definitely include a picture up in here during the video to help demonstrate that. Thanks so much. Be sure to like us and subscribe to our channel so you can see more of these videos in the future. And if you have a question or comment about some of the designs and the techniques that I'm using, please include them. If at all possible, we'll try to address them and show the answers to those if we need to on the air. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.